Hello, everyone. It's Cheryl Millett here, live at 5 on Mondays on Facebook. It's a great way to reach out to many people. I mean, I see more and more people doing live videos these days. I mean, podcasts are very popular. We just didn't have this available to us years ago. Social media, if we want to kind of talk to social media as well, and that platform as well to keep in touch. To share pictures, to see family that's on the other side of the country, other side of the planet for some people. So it's really, really good that way to use it. And on the other hand, we might be learning about various things about social media and about these platforms where we're not so keen about, which is them taking our information and not as private as maybe one would like it to be. But the idea is, when I think about the times growing up in my grandmother's house, they had a phone, a party line. Yes, this might be something you have heard of, but I do recall having a party line at my grandmother's place, or my grandparents' place, and the party line was very interesting. You would have different rings. And do I recall what the ring was at my grandparents' house? I don't remember, but I mean, there was 2 rings, 3 rings, or a long ring, and sometimes it's just not 2 people were sharing the cost of the line. It was more than 3, more than 2, 3 people. And the party line is kind of interesting. I remember somebody saying, "Oh, yeah, there's somebody out on the other line." People would even listen in. And whether we think about the movies with the operators listening in this case, it's the party lines, and people would listen in to these, into these very calls. It has much changed. People these days try to listen in to the conversations people are, people are talking about. And if you hear something of interest, and what did you say? And we just want to know. We're very curious to know kind of what's going on. So I'm just kind of seeing where things are here on Live at 5 today. It's definitely the holidays, and more people are going to be busy with the holidays. And what does busy mean for a lot of people is, go, many things to do, trying to fit many things in. So you're not only just working all day, you're actually going out and being busy all night. And if that means eating more, that might mean getting to bed not on time, not getting the things done. And it becomes, one of those seasons to be jolly. Yes, seasons to feel, that you're spending time with friends and getting together and having fun. But at the same time, it's busy. So one of the things I wanted to talk about with respect to busy is just give ourselves some time to take nice deep breaths, whether it's going into a party, when we're in the party, to actually feel our body kind of get calm and relaxed. So the busy holiday seasons that are coming up, for all the different cultures and holidays that come about, is to just be reminded that busy means sometimes we actually physically and mentally get so busy that it just uses up a lot of our energy, which is not really supporting even our immune system. And quite often that adds in more alcohol than usual, more food than usual. And just be mindful that, yes, eating is eating, but maybe don't have breakfast the next day, or don't have lunch, or eat a very light or low calorie, the next day when you do that. And because fasting and certain things like that and cleansing is becoming more acceptable. So it's really simple, just keep it simple. Have, again, a light breakfast, if any, just drink warm water and lemon. So during this holiday season, I can see it all coming in. People have got colds, people are under the weather, cough, lung, all that kind of thing. And And then there's many things to keep us busy and our mind busy. So it's really important to help support your nervous system and your immune system with, yes, good food when can. Tonics are very good at this time of, this time of the year. Hi, Ivan. Yeah. Oh, Ivan's talking about one short ring, one long ring was ours. Yeah, isn't that funny? I mean, the days, I mean, who else remembers these party lines with these phones? It's a lot of funny. But, just kind of bringing it up because it was brought up recently is the fact that we as people are curious, because I do remember my grandmother, or maybe it was my aunts, where they were on their phone and saying, get off the line, please. And you would hear this. And I remember my grandmother or somebody saying to me, how you can tell if somebody's still on the line. So people, even though it wasn't their ring, people would pick it up and they were curious, and then they would say, nosy Parker or certain things like that. But we are curious, to be accepting that we are curious as our human beings, as part of our nature, and we just want to know. So what do we want to know? Well, that's a different topic altogether. Hi, Linda. And then what I wanted to first do today on kind of top of mind was to actually acknowledge inventors. Not necessarily scientists, but actually inventors. And maybe some of them have a science background. But inventors really are, well, there's so many inventions that have come that we can appreciate. A ton of them. Wow, it could be certain cookware, certain appliances. I mean, what would we do without a sewing, needle? What would we do without, I don't know, toilet paper, paper towels, all the little things that we actually use. I mean, I'm just looking around here. What, computers, a great invention. And, lights, lamps, light bulbs, electricity, that's an invention. But I see inventions of that nature different than certain other inventions. Not to say that I want to say it's black and white, but inventions of pharmaceutical drugs. And where that's kind of gotten us, and all the side effects. And to just try to think about that for a moment, is that really part of that, different than the inventors that exist out there, is the invention of something that doesn't get to the root cause. When we look at various things, I'm going to just, bring in the pharmaceuticals. We haven't looked at the root cause, and that is clear from many of the doctors, the books of 50, 60, 100 years ago, 120 years ago, when I'm reading these, is that the doctors were well aware of that the drugs are not the answer. Yet today, more and more, the drugs are being recommended without any thought of whether we need, without even any test. And this is the antibiotics, where in certain cases they kind of have to pull in, but at the end of the day, they are using probiotics these days. But in general, there's a lot of meds being pushed. In fact, I've spoken to a naturopathic doctor, who's actually a very good friend, and he was witnessing, and there's a doctor too, who's part of my walk club, who had actually had people come in, reps come in and say, hey, we've got a new drug, we want you to recommend it. And when he looked at the new drug to see what it was all about, he was not comfortable recommending it to children, and was a pediatric doctor, and decided that he wasn't going to. And lo and behold, and I've heard this from other doctors, the rep came back in and said, you haven't been recommending. And the doctor, who's a very, very bright guy, had said, how the heck do they know I'm not recommending it? Where would they get that confidential information from? Pharmaceutical companies. So yes, I've heard this in Florida too. And it has happened. It happens where for some reason they have the ability to know which doctor has recommended or not recommended things. And that's the crazy thing about it. And I love inventors. I think there's tons of room for great inventions, but that these continuous pharmaceutical drugs is not one of them. They do have their purpose. And if you've got high blood pressure and you want to bring it down, Absolutely. But what people don't realize is these, playing with our blood pressure is crazy, because I don't know if you've ever heard of this, where people get put on drugs, they're in hospitals, and it gets mixed up, or it's too much, or they don't give the right dose, and their blood pressure just plummets and they can't recover. Because they've got this pharmaceutical drugs as chemicals in the body, and they cannot recover. So enough about the pharmaceutical drugs. More and more people are asking questions, which is great, and more people are wanting to come off, and they're demanding to come off of the drugs, which is great, and looking for other things, because the truth of the matter is, whether we're talking about pharmaceutical drugs and including in the psychotic drugs, is that I have been told from doctors who are psychiatrists, who are the ones who are giving out drugs, they know at Harvard, they know that it's not the answer. They're not the answer. So that brings me to something I read recently, which is regarding children, and regarding, yes, autism, ADHD, but all these other things that kind of circle around that, learning disabilities. Let me just see if I can find it here. Might not be able to find it easily. I might have cut it down, but the idea was, to simplify it, is when we think of conditions that are being created, they're being created because, yes, there's a label, yes, there's a drug, yes, there's this, but really, is that what they need? I've been told by people who are on the spectrum, or, Asperger's, that they're not broken. The children are not broken. They may be tripped up by chemicals, maybe vaccines, maybe somehow heavy metals, maybe this, maybe that. And that's why I don't like to say that vaccines cause autism, but they may be a factor in triggering the body or the brain to be inflamed, causing all the different issues that are caused with these children that are on the spectrum. And I'll describe it as this. If you have inflammation in the brain, now you might have remembered me talking about this book that's over 100 years old that I got at a content sale at a doctor's place. And this book, going through it, it's 1,400 pages. It's a lot of reading. And the language is, I don't know, next to Shakespearean. But the idea is there's a number of big words in there. It's a good thing they have this or that. Like pus actually has this very long name. But in this book, they talk about, I'm first kind of diving into the neurological, about inflammation and softening of the brain. And it goes into great detail. But I want to say that when we talked about mentioned the pharmaceuticals, is that we're not getting at the root cause. Even in this book, it talked about health and lifestyle, fresh air. What happened to the days where, go home, drink plenty of liquids, fluids, get plenty of rest, get outside in fresh air. That was big. Over these decades, I've heard that from people who are in their 80s, 90s, older. They were quite often told, go out, get fresh air. And in fact, I don't know if it's in any books, but children, parents, even when I used to, even in the middle of the winter, put the child out in a sleeping outdoors, in a crib, all bundled up like crazy, go walking in the winter, and it's get out in this fresh air. So we've lost sight. In this book, they bring it up, but they bring up the thing around inflammation in the brain. So can you imagine, I believe, and I think this is true, gifted children, our children are becoming smarter, call it gifted, tuned in, creative, all the different things that we can think of that children are capable of. And when I spoke to people who had gifted children or teachers of gifted children, I said, listen, if they'd ever be tested for, let's say, on the spectrum, what do you think? would they be on the spectrum? And they said to me, absolutely, Cheryl, we have thought about that. I agree. I think if they were tested, they certainly have those signs. So I think autistic children with autism is probably a better way of looking at it, are probably extremely bright, but they get tripped up. And what's happening in the brain, why they want to beat their head against the wall, why they scream, why they act out, is it's painful. This inflammation in the brain, in this book that's over 100 years old, are talking about how the inflammation is affecting many of the things in the brain, cognitive, senses, right? So they're over, many of the children have heightened senses of many kinds. So because they have this inflammation in the brain, loud noises bother them, arguing would bother them, many things. And we do have this thing about noise, and it's a whole other, we can always go on tangents here. But the idea is that we're deciding to give them meds, and I don't think that's a good idea. I think really the inflammation in the brain's got to be looked at, and all the different things about inflammation in our brains got to be looked at. And this could be for all the various conditions that we have looked at. Now, the mushiness that they talked about, the softening of the brain, was actually tuning into the nerves shrinking. And that goes into my work and the research to do with diabetes and neuropathy, where the nerves shrink and they start to, it's like a mushiness that kind of happens. And that would further exacerbate what our brain is able to do, right? So if the brain runs the body, that would make everything exposed, or possibly going to make a difference to the way our body responds, or our body is acting, or our body is sensitive to. So I wanted to kind of frame all of that children with autism is really an inflammation, a side of inflammation. In fact, they wrote an article not too long ago, maybe a few years ago, talking about, we found inflammation in the brain for people who have depression. Okay, let's tie it all together. If we can really kind of just see inflammation as being the, yes, we get an injury and we can see the inflammation, but inflammation in the brain is headache, right? So at a very simple level, you can have a headache. You can't have any pain without having swelling or inflammation. And what do? We put ice on our head, ice on our neck, and try to bring down the inflammation. So the idea is inflammation. We have to tune into inflammation is part of all of the issues that we have out there, all the diseases, all of the conditions, whether that be cancer, whether that be depression, whether that be a child coming into autism, headaches, yes, diabetes as well. But all these mental things, from me reading this book over 100 years ago, is really tuning into, because I would talk like this anyway months or years ago, is inflammation is part of the stages of disease. And if our body gets tripped up with enough toxicity in our body, and where that can be, if it's heavy metals, they can pass the blood-brain barrier. From the vaccines, they can pass the blood-brain barrier. And medications cause inflammation, right? That's all the side effects. And then you take more drugs. So you can kind of see how this is all coming together, that inflammation is not the cause of all disease and conditions. I'll make that straight. Inflammation is from the causes that come into our body. And that could be stress, it could be trauma, it could be injury tied into trauma. It could be infections that come into our body. And it could be all the various things that would irritate our body, from all the toxicity, from all the chemicals. And we know that if we're poisoned, instantly we have this kind of reaction, poisonous reaction. But what happens when things actually build up in our system over time? So when we think of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS, and they say when it comes to obesity, when it comes to even diabetes, these things are happening sooner, or happening to younger, sooner, younger people. And why can't it be built up at any age in our system of toxicity? And we have to understand a couple of things. That one, stress is a form of trauma to our body. And it would be here for a few hours to kind of go into the play here that stress has on our body. But just understand that a stress actually gets the body up in arms. If we were being chased by a lion, we know what that means. We're going to run like the dickens to get away from the thing. That means our adrenaline gets into action, and things move faster. Our muscles, our digestion closes down. The things that we don't need closes down. Our senses are heightened acutely. In fact, we don't know why we choose sometimes to do what we do, but we get into action when we need to get into action. But stress causes changes within our body, chemical changes in our body, and we do not eliminate. So never mind digesting, but we do not eliminate. It wouldn't be a function. So what happens is acute stress would actually be like the lion, of course, in these very situations, which is great. But what most people have is chronic stress. And whether that's mental or physical, but this chronic stress is stopping us from eliminating, stopping us from our optimum digestion. So you can see how that would fit in. And if we're not eliminating, the things that we need to eliminate is the toxins within our body. And it's very simple. If you just put inflammation in the stages of disease, and we're in stress, we have this stress. This is why I talked about the holiday season here. Take the time to just be relaxed with your busyness. Take the time to take your deep breaths here and there, in between, even when you're not talking and somebody's doing the talking, before you drink, before you eat, just to slow down the body, calm the body down. That's really what you're looking for, is just to calm. So you can still have more food if you want. You can still stay up later, but the idea is to do it in a more calm, relaxed mode. Even though you're busy kind of getting there, give yourself the time to be relaxed. And this is why more people get sick around these holidays, because busy. It's like being chased by a lion. That's what I really wanted to talk about today, is just kind of tying in all of the diseases, the inflammation, the pharmaceutical drugs are not getting at the root causes. It's managing the inflammation, but you can imagine if you still have the stress coming at you, if you still have the toxicity coming at you, and all you're doing is managing the inflammation, it's not getting at the root cause. So this is going to cause other issues, in which it does in that time. So let me just see what else I had today. So is there any questions? Hi, Robert. Hi, Howard. Any other questions? I mean, the idea of talking about inflammation, I'll surely bring it up again and again, is, there's different people here on the video, but the idea is it really is the simplistic way of understanding a stage in the stages of disease, all diseases, because that's why diseases are called, what do they call it? Colonitis, right? Or colitis now, but colonitis, inflammation in the colon. Esophagitis, inflammation in the esophagus. Tetanitis, there's so many. Hepatitis, inflammation in the liver. Pancreatitis, inflammation in the pancreas. So itis means inflammation, but cancer, depression, Alzheimer's, they all have an inflammation going on, all of them. And a mushiness, that's another stage within the stages of disease. It's so think of ulcers are letting out toxicity. When we get ulcers, it's a way to get things out. When you get sick, right, you've got this built up of, okay, so let me give this train of thought here now that it's popped in. When you're stressed during this busy, right? When you're busy, what what it's doing is, and remember I said digestive system doesn't work as well, and therefore your elimination channels don't work as well. So you've got this toxicity built up in the body, and it has to get out. What better way to give you a cold than to get out the mucus, get out, discharges are going to happen. So I want to say this about it, because quite often when people have fevers or they have discharges or stuff like that, blowing nose, you want to dry it up. That's not what you want to do. You do not want to dry up. You want to get all of that mucus and all of that congestion out of the system. If it's diarrhea, you want to get the diarrhea out of the system. You don't want to hold on to whether it's if there's a virus in there or some poison that was in there, whatever it is, it's irritating the digestive system. You want to get it out. So it's an opportunity when you get a cold or when you get a fever to actually, in the case of a fever, to burn off the bugs, right? So burn off the bugs, but you could burn off other things as well and be stronger than. And obviously the system is building up your antibodies against this. So when you're busy like you are at this time of the year, or any time, or ongoing in life, you're holding on to toxicity. And when you hold on to toxicity, the body is going to bring forth symptoms that you're not going to like. And if you do get a cold or get sick, it's the body going, wow, had enough, just had enough, got to get this out. But what happens for some people who are really busy? They don't get sick. They don't, when they're so busy, let's say you have a big event and you're putting hours out there, and so you don't have time to get sick. The body is so in adrenaline mode that you don't have time to get sick. But what happens when the event's over? The crash happens. And when this crash happens, the body is taken up. It's got to get it out. And that's the vacation you're taking from busy. And it just so happens, okay, now it's time to get all that stuff out, right? It's an opportunity for the body to actually get out. So what are good things to do when you've got this cold happening or congestion happening in the body is to drink a lot of fluids. Get outside and get some fresh air, like I said earlier. To actually walk in the fresh air, loosen things up, and have a steamy shower. Right? You might be drying the skin that way. So some olive oils and oils and stuff will be very helpful. But having a steamy shower, not necessarily having that hot water on you, but just having in the space of the steam, so you're not depleting yourself with the oils on the skin, because that's what hot showers do, and a lot of fluids and stuff like that. It's simple, But if you go and get these cold medications, these things, what they're doing is they're just suppressing you, allowing to eliminate all that junk you need to get out of the body that your body's been holding on to. And so a cold, look at it as a blessing on one hand, and also and knowing that that's your lifestyle, that you've been busy, and your body hasn't been eliminating, and you've been under this stress. And so it's a sign, right? You'll know exactly if you got a cold if you think about how you got the cold. And it's not, ladies and gentlemen, because you caught it from somebody else. That may be a factor that it's going around, but the factor that you actually got it was because your body is ready to, it needs you to allow that release of toxins. That's why some people will get sick and other people won't get sick. But if you're busy, you might be too busy to get sick, but it'll catch up with you, right? It'll catch up with you. So I hope that was helpful, because we are during this busy season. More than ever, what you've added to your busy season is less sleep, more food, more sugar, more alcohol, and all of this. What is alcohol? What is too much sugar? It's all toxins for your body, right? It's all toxins in your body. And because why? Because it's processed, right? The sugar is processed. Alcohol is a processing of fruit. yeah, so too much food, well, your system can only digest so much anyway. So it's just another way of stressing the body. If your body's digesting the food to what it has to do, then it doesn't have enough time to, or enough energy to eliminate. And that's that about that. What else was I going to talk about? Yeah, well, I was going to talk about the special sunbathing out there. I'm going to leave that to next week. The sunbathing that is kind of going on. So it's been at the 30-minute mark. And so today, yeah, we talked about being curious. As human beings, we're going to be curious and just being mindful of that party line that my grandparents had. But yes, we're all curious. So when people are asking questions, you sometimes want to, call them nosy Parkers, but that's our innate human nature, is to be curious and welcome questions, especially for kids. Oh, they'll bring some humor in your life if you start encouraging kids to ask questions, which is, if most people know, kids all go through that period of asking questions. But let that not stop. Let that child within all of us continue with that curious nature and asking questions. You might just channel it somewhere else a little bit, as opposed to having it, knowing gossip or stuff like that, right? So anyway, that's that about curiosity and inflammation, and we're talking busy, tying stress into the colds and fever and all of that stuff, and inflammation for diseases and stuff, and a probably better understanding of why things happen. But always remember, if you're not feeling up to par, then lots of fluids. Don't eat. Lots of fluids, fresh air, some movement if you can. If not, if you're in the fever and you're in the bed, you're in the bed. Just get plenty of fluids and give yourself that rest that you need, so the body works through that it can do. But colds, yeah, you're up to the challenge. Get that fresh air, get out, get moving, drink a lot of fluids, and carry on. You're still able to do certain things. But so just going to wish everybody a healthy week. And if you're just coming on board or came on later, go listen to the video. Definitely tune into what these pharmaceutical drugs are doing, the whole thing around inflammation, especially around the brain and its function and its job for the body. All of that good stuff. All that good stuff is worth learning. And until next week, yes, best of health. Enjoy the holiday time. Enjoy the celebrations, getting together with friends, and just be mindful of some of the tips that I've given you here, and understandings. So take care, everyone. Bye for now. And if you like what was shared on this video, and if you have any questions at all, then please, welcome all kinds of questions. But otherwise, education is always the first good step to start, because I find most people aren't educated in health and healthy lifestyle, and that's where we can get to, especially at Live at 5. So take care, everyone. Until next week, bye for now.